Hi guys, it's Jill. Welcome back to the EquiTheory podcast. This week's episode, we are taking a break from the scientific explanation stuff that I've been doing lately. I know you guys are probably as tired of listening to that as I am explaining it, but it's very important, so I felt the need to cover it before we move on to any other episodes, because those are terms and concepts that I'm going to be talking about quite a bit, and I would rather not have to explain them every episode, so I can just refer back, you know what I'm saying? But anyway, today's episode is still burdened by my allergies, so I do apologize. I don't know why they won't go away. I wanted to film this about an hour ago, but then I got hiccups, so, I'm struggling. But today's episode is actually going to be about Zoe's story. I know we're still in the preliminary stages, and I really want to get into what I'm doing lately, but I also feel like it's really important to discuss Zoe because she's such an integral part of this whole journey. Obviously, she's my heart horse, and I want to talk about her story and how we came to be and fill you guys in on all that. So let's jump in. Okay, where do we even begin? I've known Zoe for 5 years, and I'm going to do my best not to make this podcast take 5 years. I also feel like I need to sneeze right now. I'm struggling so hard. I listened to the first half of this podcast because I just edited the intro, and oh my good gravy nation, I am congested. It's bad. You hear that? Super sexy. Anyway, I'm going to do my best to muddle through this, even though I can't breathe through my nose at all, so I'm literally the SpongeBob meme. This is already off to a mature start. Anyway, focusing on the task at hand here, the story of Zoe. So really everything kind of started back in, I think, 2015, 2014, something like that. Zoe came into my life because of Sunny, actually, my boss, the lady that I currently work for now. If you don't know, I live on a horse farm in a tiny house, and I work for Sunny, and we met because we have the same trainer, and she always had young horses that she needed to sell, and she was like, this one needs show experience, take it to a show, because Bo was always lame. He had a keratoma for 8 months, and he had white line for 3, and so he was just always off, and the last few years he was completely sound, but the first few were just awful with foot problems. I just burped. You're welcome. I'm leaving that in. Oh, there's another one. Surprise. Anyway, so Bo had some foot issues, and Sunny would always give me a project horse to ride. So when I first started riding Zoe, it was because Bo was lame, and it's actually a really funny story, but also kind of a super not funny story. So at the time, Sunny was like, I've got this 3-year-old, she's super cool, I want you to take her to an event, but let's take her to a hunter jumper show first. So she brought her from here on our farm to the farm that was in Little Rock where I was riding at the time. So she trailers her down there, and they actually rode her from the barn where I used to board at. It was called Salem. It's now real estate development, which is super fun. The place that I my heart, there's so many memories there, it's all gone, which breaks my heart. But anyway, so she brings Zoe to Salem, and then they actually rode alongside the road down to the farm where the hunter jumper farm was, which was a mile or two. It was a good distance, and apparently Zoe was wonderful. So I pull up to the show, and I see Sunny and the girl that was working for her at the time riding these two 3-year-old young mares down the road, and I was like, oh my god, what is happening right now? But anyway, so she handed the reins to me and said, get on her, and she looked huge at the time, but she was probably only 16.1. She's 16.2.5 now, I think. But she was track fit, so she was all tucked up and leggy and just little baby Zoe. So I hopped on her and warmed her up, and that's when we all kind of realized that she was probably abscessing or something, or had a stone bruise, because she was lame. Not super lame, but lame. And I hate even talking about it because it's not a cute, magical story. It's I was a jerk and rode my horse while it was lame. But I just, there's no excuse for that. But Anyway, it happened, and I'm not proud of it. None of us are, and none of us would ever do that today. I don't know what compelled us back then. I think we were all just like, we need to get this horse jumping before the show, so we just did what we did. But, anyway, she was okay. We took her over X-rails, and she jumped them all wonderfully. She didn't stop at anything, and you know hunter shows, they have, like, brush and stuff all under their jumps, and she was like, okay, I'm not touching that. But she jumped them, which in hindsight, like, how stupid could you be taking a young horse to jump for the first time with a foot problem? Like, because so easily could have created a jumping equals pain situation there, but luckily that didn't happen. Anyway, so that went as well as it could have. Zoe was a saint, and so we took her back to Salem, and I couldn't ride her leading up to the event because she was lame, and we were just giving her time to heal, blow the abscess, or have the stone bruise go away, whatever the problem was. And we ended up going ahead and throwing her on the trailer and taking her to Holly Hill, which was an event down in Louisiana. And so we get down to Holly Hill, and we have the show farrier, who we love and trust, take a look at her feet, and he was like, oh my god, these are awful. And because, you know, sometimes, like, not all track farriers are like this, but sometimes they're just like kind of like NASCAR, like ying, 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 ying. Okay, you're good to go. And that's kind of what happened. So he really did her up well and hoof tested her and said she was good to go. So I ended up competing her, and she was good in the dressage. Have no idea what we got. We jumped clean cross country, this young mare that has never seen a solid log or ramp or all these weird things and water and stuff, but she did it all beautifully. So, actually, I don't think we had to go through the water now that I think about it. But I don't know, it was a really good time. She just, like, trotted up to everything and was like, badoink. I totally understand this. I was not meant to be a racehorse. Funny thing about that, I forget how many times she raced. It wasn't very many, though, but she actually tied up on her last race. She was out in front, and then her muscles just, like, clenched, and she tied up, and she just, like, kind of fell to the back of the pack, and then never would open up again. And she just, like, every time they tried to get her to run, she wouldn't. She was like, no, that hurt. I'm not doing that. So, smart girl. She said, that is not my career. So, that's her little racing tangent. Her race name is actually Educating Guess, which is awful, and I roast Sunny for that all the time, because it should be educated, not educating, which having the word educated in there is, like, totally ironic, and it drives me insane. I hate it. So that's why I changed her show name to Zenaria, but everyone tells me that's stupid, so let me know what you think, because I thought it was pretty. But her name was also Edie at the time. I hated that name, Edie. Sorry if your name's Edie, but, like, for Zoe, it did not fit at all. And now she's just unequivocal. I don't know what even that word means. Good sentence. Anyway, she's definitely a Zoe. So, anyway, the cross country goes really well. Show jump went really well. We had no rails, no stops, no nothing. So we finished on our dressage score at 6th. And mind you, this is a starter competition, so it's not, like, recognized or anything. It was very small jumps. And we went home with a pretty little green ribbon. So, yeah, it was pretty great. And then about that time, a lady... I don't really want to involve them in this because I am not in contact with them anymore. So I'm not going to use names. But I was really good friends with this girl whose aunt really liked Zoe. And they were riding with my trainer at the time. So the aunt, we'll call her Anne. That is not her name, but, you know, for anonymity's sake and for my sanity, I need a name. So Anne really likes Zoe. She wants to buy her, so she ends up giving Sunny an offer, and Sunny takes it, and she buys Zoe. And she wanted her for herself to learn to do English on, and because she was a pretty avid Western rider, but she'd only ever been on, like, you know, dead broke little quarter horses, so she didn't really know how to handle a 3-year-old. And she was like, okay, Jill, you can keep riding her until I get my skill level up and am able to work with her, and Zoe is broke enough for me to really work with her. And I was like, oh, okay, I love this horse. That's fine by me. So, I think that was probably about the time that Bo was coming back into work after being out with, I think he was out with White Line at the time. So, I had spent several months riding, with Anne's niece all over their farm, bareback, just messing around on Zoe, having a blast with her. And then we ended up moving her back out to Salem, where Bo was, so that I could ride and work with her regularly. So I was riding her a lot and riding Bo a lot, ended up taking them to shows, and was competing on both of them. And it was about this time that Anne and Sunny decided that they wanted to sort of like sponsor me or fund me to go to Young Rider, which in hindsight, not a very intelligent plan. We had a 3-year-old who had all the talent in the world, but me, who's not a professional or a very like adept rider, and to get a horse all the way up to 1 star in the amount of time that we had, because I think I only had like a year before I aged out of being able to do the lower division, and then I would have had a few more years before I aged out to do the 2-star division, but I was like, I don't want to do 2-star, it's too big. So I've always been a chicken. I mean, I love jumping high, but like to a certain point, I'm like, it's kind of putting me and my horse in danger, and I'm not really all about that. And I know that's a super unpopular opinion, but like, I think jumping high is fun, but I also like there to be lots of safety involved, because I love my pony. Oh, dings! Shush! Not to say that people that jump high don't love their ponies, but that's obviously not true, but I'm a worrywart, so let me have this. So they were both going to fund me to go to this Young Rider, so I started doing lots of shows and clinics on Zoe, and then we all sort of just realized that this isn't going to happen, and so Anne took Zoe home and pulled her from Salem, and so I just had Bo, and it was about that time that I was like, okay, it's time to start looking for my upper level horse, because Bo was supposed to be my upper level horse. They told us that he could probably go prelim, and we very quickly realized that that was not the case. And he was a tricky ride because he was too difficult for a beginner, but didn't have the talent to go very high, like past training. So anyone who could like ride really well probably didn't want a horse that maxed out so soon, you know? So I had a really hard time finding a home for him, even though he was like a wonderful horse. Like nobody, like it was such a niche little, I don't even like criteria, I don't know, but like I couldn't find the right person for him, so we ended up selling him to a lady who wanted to do fox hunting with him, and that ended up not working out, so she sold him to this mother in Virginia who ended up I think, as far as I understand, giving him to her daughter, who I think is a little bit older than me. And, sorry, Megan, if you're listening, I don't know how old you are, but, they absolutely love him, and he's doing super well there, so I'm very happy about that. I'm glad that they love him, and they say that it's his forever home, so very happy about that. But that tangent serves a purpose, I promise. So anyway, I'm starting to look for Bo to be sold, and nobody's biting, and that, and Anne, who owned Zoe at the time, asked a pretty high number for Zoe, and I was like, no. I did all the training on that horse. I'm not going to pay for training I did. And which sounds kind of like arrogant to say, but at the same time, like, I'm not gonna make something and then pay for it, you know? Is that arrogant? I don't know. But anyway, it was a really high number, and I was like, no. I can get something that's already going for that. Like already going experience, you know what I mean? And I was always very good at keeping a like quote unquote professional relationship with the horses I worked with, and not letting myself get attached, because I knew they weren't mine. I knew they were going to get sold, and I just wouldn't let myself like get close to them. And, but there was always something about Zoe. She always just like, I don't know. I loved that little mare. And I still do when I'm using past tense. But anyway, so I end up, just like really scrambling, trying to get rid of Bo. And about the time that I was like, oh, you know what? I give up. I love Bo. I'm going to keep my horse. Anne approaches me and says, you know what? I just want to give you Zoe. I think that you two are meant to be together, and, you need to have her. And I was like, oh, well, if you're just going to give her to me, then we can drop Bo's price astronomically and find somebody, who, like, he'll work for. And, so, like I said, I mean, we didn't just sell him to anyone. We wouldn't have done that. We made sure he went to a decent home because we knew the lady who wanted to fox hunt him, but that didn't end up going well, which is unfortunate. But he ended up in a very good home, so very happy about that. It was weird. Anyway, this is all so long ago. It's so weird to think about now, but Zoe, I ended up, as soon as Bo got on the trailer to leave and I finished crying, I hooked up the trailer and went and got Zoe, and I was like, I need my baby. And because I just had so many awesome memories with her, and I was so excited for this new journey, and I could really focus all my energy into moving up on her and making a serious go at an eventing career on her. And so I go to get her and bring her home. And there was sort of a fiasco with the whole I'm giving you a horse thing, and there was some uncertainty as to whether we were going to keep her or not, but it all ended up working out. And we got Dazazu Bean home, and then I started competing her. And I ran her at a few beginner novices. I'd already done a few at this point. And so I got her and took her to beginner novices, moved her up to her first novice, and we were doing pretty well. And I think we did novice for like almost a year or 2 years. And we were really trying to work and get our dressage score to go down. But she was always just so tight in her back and like would never relax. Her tail was always swishing. In the canter, she'd switch leads behind, so she'd do this like kind of hop thing. And every vet or farrier at the show that looked at her, not even asking for their opinion, it was just like, oh, she's got a problem with her ovaries, her feet are funny, she's got this issue and this issue and this issue. And like, I was like, okay, well, we'll check for that. We checked for everything and literally just could not find an issue with her. She gets chiropractic, she's had her teeth done, her feet look great, and like everything, just like we couldn't find a reason. And my hypothesis now is that the issue wasn't so much a medical issue as it was a training issue. And so now proceeding, I really struggled with her, and I don't really know how to emphasize that a whole lot. The first year that I had her was really hard, and I really thought that I made like the biggest mistake. I was like, why do I keep getting these difficult horses that I can't move up on, and I have all these problems that I have to work through? I just want to, be at the top of the sport, and, I'm getting older and I still haven't gone prelim yet, and all my friends are like 15 and I'm over here like 17 about to be 18. Sorry, still congested. And all my friends are like, that are like 15, 2 years younger than me, are moving up and doing prelim, and I was just like, this is so frustrating. And I was just like really upset with myself and with Zoe and everything. And for a while I was like, I don't know if I should just get rid of her because this is the worst. She was really pushing me, as you can tell. And so it was really tough. And trying to, handle her, I couldn't, like, because the problem wasn't putting like a stronger bit on her or anything. Control was never an issue. She would just get so tight and bouncy, and the dressage was really our biggest issue. And she just would never relax and have a nice, pretty, flowing, quote-unquote, obedient, relaxed dressage frame. She just was tight, and her tail was a propeller. And, I think at one of the last shows I did on her, she, at our halt, like, ex-halt salute, she, like, threw her head up, her front feet came off the ground, and she like whinnied super loudly and was flipping her head. And oh god, that was something she used to do too. She'd flip her head like crazy. It was so frustrating. And so it was a mess. At novice, I talked to my trainer and I was like, look, she can do the height. I really want to move up, and our dressage may not be there, but it's there at home. and, we got the talent, and we can do it out on the cross-country field, and we can do it in the show jump arena. It's just not happening in the dressage arena, and at this point, I don't really care about, winning. It's never going to happen for me. Fun fact, I've never won a show. Such a great rider here, right? I used to get hate on Instagram for that all the time. Why do people like the way you ride? You've never even won. Ow, my heart. It's not for lack of trying. But anyway, so I gave up on the dream of winning, and I was like, I kind of just want to move up and have fun, because I'm very bored at novice. Because at novice, you don't have hardly any combinations on cross country or show jump. It's just log, turn, ramp, turn, and it was so boring. So at training, I got to do more technical rides and stuff like that. And having more to do in the dressage test actually helped a little bit. But we only ran training twice. So, I moved her up to training. We ran the 2 trainings, and she was great. And then, the season ended, and, I started my summer semester at, the college that I was at the time. It's not the one I'm at now. When I was back in Little Rock, I took 2 summer classes. It was anthropology and biology, and they were super demanding. I had so much homework and was constantly having to study, and it just was really sucking the energy out of me, and I was having a lot of saddle fit issues. My dressage saddle didn't fit her, and my jump saddle didn't fit her, and that was causing a lot of problems in our rides, obviously. And I was like, there's no point in even riding her if I'm just gonna piss her off, so I might as well just not. And so I would go out and hang out with her or do a hack on her or something, but nothing really serious. And honestly, I was so kind of disheartened at the way our rides had been going that I just kind of was avoiding it. And so I'm really just kind of doing school and whatever else, and not really engaging in riding. And then I'm losing my train of thought. My brain is pittering out. It's been 20 minutes of me talking to myself. Resetting, recalibrating. That's me. Sorry, this is probably super boring for everyone listening, but this is hard. I don't know how people do this for hours. Anyway, so it was about that time over the summer that I was just kind of struggling and not really into riding, and just kind of wanted to, do my own thing. I would take lessons and ride, but not really much outside of that. And every time I wanted to go on a trail ride with her or something, she was just insane. We would go on the trail ride and she would power walk all the way to wherever we were going. But when we turned around, she was just neurotic. It was awful. And I'm describing this now as I would have back then, not as I would now. But she was just just cantering in place and rearing up in every time, because I was always taught, if you're walking forward and the horse is cantering or being bad, whatever, turn it around and walk it back the opposite direction. Well, that works. But then when you turn back around, you've got the same problem. And so nothing really worked, and I never wanted to get off of her, because walking her on the ground was way worse than just riding all the rears and canterings in place. So, we would walk a good mile on a trail away from the barn and then turn around and canter in place all the way back. A walking pace, but cantering. It was awful. And she would be white by the end of it. And I never understood why she was so stressed and just wanted to go back to the barn. Now it makes sense. You think about it, some horses are fine with it, but others are not. If it's an arena horse or a horse that's used to open fields, going in the woods for a trail is supposed to be relaxing, but for the horse, it's all this new stimulus overflow, and they're like, what? This is insane. And so if you actually think about it, it's so that's actually a lot more challenging than being in the arena where they're familiar with. So that was brought to my attention by Miss Adele, the willing equine. Thanks, Adele. Appreciate it. Because I was a stupid little lady. I said, it's relaxing to me. Why isn't it relaxing to you? Because my horse is not me. Duh. Anyway, so I ride her back, and I just was this is a waste of my time. I I hate it. She hates it. Neither of us are enjoying this, and sort of just kind of, yep, that's about where my brain's at right now. But I decided that we should just like take a break. So I wasn't really riding a whole lot, and that was towards the end of the summer. So the last week in July, I get a phone call, and the barn manager, or my dad, calls me, and he was like, you need to go get the truck, hook up the trailer, and have it ready to go because I'll be home in like 10 minutes. And I was like, what is going on? Because instantly when somebody tells you you need to hook up the trailer right now, your immediate instinct is like, what happened to my horse, or whose horse is dying? What's going on? And he was like, I don't want you to freak out. I just need you to go hook up the trailer. And I was like, you have to tell me what's happening right now. And he was like, I just got a call from the barn manager, and he said that Zoe got cast in her stall and she's colicking and we need to take her to the vet now. And I was like, oh, okay, so I'm going to die. And so I'm like running around trying not to hyperventilate and keep myself together. And so I hook up the trailer and drive it, or wait till my dad gets home, and then he drives it to the barn. And we get to the barn, and actually the vet was there, luckily, just of all days for him to be there. He was there looking at another horse. And we were like, okay, so this one's colicking. Can you help? And so he oiled her and palpated and did all the good things and pulled out a few dry poops, which is gross. But he was like, yeah, she should be good. I've oiled her. She should be ready to go. Whatever, you guys can just keep an eye on her, relax. And I was like, okay. So my dad left to go do something, and I hung out with her and grazed her for a while. And she was eating, and she seemed to be fine. And then we just put her back in her stall, and after like an hour, and left. And then that was probably at like 1 or 2 p.m. And then at almost 9 o'clock, we get another call, and she was trying to go down again. So we get back in the trailer and drive out there, and we just decided to load her up and take her to the vet. And so we drove the hour to our vet, which is in the town that I live in now. And we get there, and they're like, okay, well, we'll put her on IV, and we'll get her lots of fluids and check her blood and make sure everything's good. So, we do all that, and I'm just like in a fit all night. I was like, oh, this is so stressful. I don't want to leave, because the vet was an hour away from us, and I was like, this is the worst ever. Can I sleep in the trailer? But they were like, she's fine. Her blood looks normal. Nothing looks wrong. So we'll just keep an eye on her. And of course, the vet that we had seen the day prior, there are 2 vets in the story. The one that was at the barn is different than the one that we took. But he went out of town, and the vet that we had her at was also out of town. So it was like their barn hands were taking care of her and everything. And the vet techs and assistants. And so we were just like, okay. And there was a stand-in vet, but nobody could operate in the event that she needed surgery. So we get, the next morning, we get a call, and they were like, we're going to put her on a trailer and see if we can bounce her loose and see if that will help. And if not, you need to come get her and take her to Oak Ridge in Oklahoma. And so I'm freaking out because Oak Ridge is 6 hours away. I was like, what? My horse that's been colicking for over 12, 18 hours has not pooped in over 18 hours, and they're supposed to poop every 20 minutes, how is she supposed to survive a 6-hour ride? And that's about the time I got a call from Sunny, who is my boss now, if you've forgotten from that first half of this podcast. But Sunny calls me, and she goes, how's Zoe? Because she bred Zoe. I think I left that detail out. Yeah, she bred her. Zoe's mom still lives on this farm. But she calls me, and she goes, how's Zoe? And I was like, she's still colicking. They don't know what's going on. They said her blood looks normal, and they're going to put her on a trailer and drive her around, see if it'll help her, knock everything loose. And Sunny goes, listen to me. They said the same thing to me about Justice. this is my, in parentheses, aside voice. Justice is Zoe's dad, her sire. So she goes, they said the same thing to me about Justice, and he's dead. And he actually died 2 weeks prior to Zoe colicking. And honestly, without him passing, I don't think that Zoe would be alive. Like, I don't think that we would have taken it as seriously as we did and made the move, because we went against the vet's advice to just, like, leave her there and keep her monitored. Sonny was like, you need to put her on a trailer and take her to the nearest surgical facility immediately. And I was like, okay, that was enough fire under the pants for me. So, I called my dad and I was like, I'm hooking up the trailer. I'm going to go pick up my trainer and we're going to go. Because my dad couldn't get off of work that day. So I went and got my trainer and I was like, you're coming with me. We're going to Louisiana. Because we decided instead of going to the 6-hour away one, we would take our chances with the 3-hour away one because we weren't sure that she would make a 6-hour drive. So we drove up here, picked her up, and just took her, and we went straight down to Red River Equine, and that's in, I think, Benton, Louisiana, or Bossier. It's right next to where Holly Hill is, which was the event that we took her to many times. I've been there so many times. But we took her to the hospital, and they palpated her and did an ultrasound, and they were like, she doesn't have a lot of backup, but she has a lot of gas in her I think intestines. I don't really remember. My brain was so fried that day. And they were like, the surgeon was like, I'm going to take her back to her stall and give her one last chance and see if she will, if she's going to try and go down again. And if she does, then I'm going to operate. And I was like, okay. Because when we pulled up there, like, we opened the trailer and she came out and she was trying to go down on the asphalt. Like, she was in so much pain. And, like, it breaks my heart to think about that because, I couldn't pull her. Like, he had to take her from me and, like, force her to walk because she was in so much pain. And sure enough, they took her to the stall after the ultrasound, and she went down immediately. And they were like, okay, into the OR. So we hung out and waited, and the surgery went really, really well, and after the fact, he came out and he was like, I held her colon in my hand, and I was so worried the whole time that it was just going to rupture in my hand, and then we would lose her. He was like, if you'd waited any longer, she would have died. And, I don't know if there's a lot of truth to that, but I think that having a colon in your hand that's about to rupture, you can say things like that. So we're very lucky that she survived, and I don't know what would have happened if her sire hadn't passed 2 weeks prior. It was crazy. And so, I told Sunny, and I was like, thank you so much for forcing me to go do this. And so she survived. She is an insured being, so she was covered. Yeah. So she was there for a week. So me and my coach drove back up here, and I wanted to move into the house on this property immediately because I was like, I'm never leaving her ever again. So I just decided to because I was going to wait until the end of August or something. Well, no, because I transferred to schools up here, but I was going to wait another week or two before I moved up here. But I just, I went home and I spent the next week gathering all my stuff and moving it up here and getting my house ready so that when I got to go pick up Zoe, I could stay here and check on her throughout the night. So, so a week goes by and I forced my boyfriend to make the drive with me. So we drove down, picked her up. She was very frazzled and she lost a ton of weight being there. And she was just so stressed out from the whole experience. But we brought her back, and she was on stall rest for, I think, 6 to 8 weeks, something like that. It was from August until my birthday, so August to September 30th. And so she was, that's almost 2 months, but I don't know. She was on stall rest for a really long time. And yeah, so we brought her back, and I stayed up here and checked on her at like 2 a.m., 4 a.m., 6 a.m., and just was like as often as I could. And that's about the point when I was like, I have all these horses to ride out here for work, but I don't get to do anything with Zoe. I just go pet her in her stall, and she's kind of like, whatever, like, what are you doing, human? Go away. And she doesn't like really care, and I can't like, work her or play with her or do anything because she's on stall rest. So that's about the time that I was like, well, maybe I can trick train her again. Because when Bo was off and he was out for 8 months and on stall rest for like 6 of those months, I was like, I really got into trick training. At the time, I had no idea how to do it at all. But this time I was like, I'm going to be serious and be an adult about this and like figure out how to do it genuinely. So that's when I started looking into positive reinforcement. And I decided to, buy a clicker, buy a treat bag, and start training her that way. And so I taught her to smile first, and then I started teaching her to target and follow a target and all of these things. And like, it really just helped strengthen our bond, I think, because I could still do something with her, and I learned to communicate with her totally differently because of this whole experience. And I was no longer like, forcing her to do everything or just like harassing her all the time, like go faster, jump this, do that. And her stress level decreased immensely. And despite losing all of that weight, she gained it all back and more. And like, even when she was out of work all summer, she didn't put on weight until I stopped riding her. And when her stress level decreased that much, she started putting on weight like crazy. And so she's in a much, much better place. And that was back in, I think I started clicker training in like August or October of 2018. So, and it's April 2019 now. So it's been a hot minute, but with the clicker training, I just really think it helped her settle a lot and realize that I'm not going to bully her around anymore. Again, no hate to negative reinforcement. That's just how I interpret what I did and how I was being to her. And not everybody is that way, but that's how I was trained. And that's not something that I want to do anymore, just because it was so, it made her so unhappy and so nervous, and her anxiety was just crazy all the time. And now every time I walk out into her paddock, she nickers at me, and she comes up to me and she's like, "What are we doing today?" And even though I shave all of her mane off, she still is like, "Okay, let's do something." And so I don't know. I'm just really, really happy with where we're at. And our story has been insane, and it's been so many different things. I thought we were going to be the next top level eventers. Boyd Martin told me that she was going to be the horse to take me to Rolex, that she was that talented. And I'm not sure if that was the same weekend that I ran him over or not, but it's fine. Yeah, Zoe was that horse, if you forgot about that. Yeah, so I don't know, like, she has incredible talent, and I used to feel like me not wanting to go upper levels was a waste of that talent, but I don't think that just because a horse has talent or is bred to do something, that it has to, and that you're doing it a disservice by not doing that. I think the best thing that we can do for our horses is love them and appreciate them, and just like really be there for them and learn how to communicate with them and enjoy them. I mean, like, you don't have to do, barrel racing or cutting or show jump or dressage or eventing to be a horse person. And I mean, those are all, well, not all of them, but like, I would like to get back to, jumping someday and having fun with Zoe that way, but I'm going to do it differently than I used to. And I'm really excited for our future. And I think that it's just going to be so much better than it was, because it's already night and day different. I mean, I never thought that I would have a horse that I could run around in the paddock with, and she would come after me and respond to me so well. And not chasing me just because I have treats, but chasing me because she understands what I'm asking. And it's just a whole new level of communication with her. And the way that I'm able to read her and she's able to read me is so vastly different than what it used to be, where I just said, oh, she's a hot mare, or oh, she just is like this, or that's just who she is. She's spicy, and I'm annoyed that she's bucking and rearing and doing all the stupid stuff. Like, maybe tomorrow will be better, or I need to put a running martingale on her and tie her down. And like, it just, nothing helped. And everything that I tried to do to quote unquote fix her or make her act like a normal horse, she just resisted. And I'm so grateful that she never gave in to all of the other methods, because like I said in the intro podcast, you know, some of my other horses never really seemed to have an issue with it, and they didn't resist like Zoe did. And Zoe was just like, no, we're not doing this. And so yeah, I don't know. She really forced me to take a look at what we were doing. And though I stumbled into positive reinforcement on accident and just wanted to do trick training, after I looked into it, I was like, I really have to take a hard look at what I'm doing. And I don't think I want to ride like that anymore, because Zoe doesn't want me to. And I know that sounds maybe anthropomorphic, or like I'm giving her human qualities, but just the way she acted under saddle back then makes it so clear to me that that's not something that was mutually enjoyable. And that doesn't mean that, you know, every horse ridden that way wouldn't enjoy it necessarily, but Zoe certainly didn't, because a happy horse doesn't have a tight back. Its tail's not going, it's not chomping at the bit, its ears aren't pinned, it's not bucking, it's not rearing. Happy horses don't do that. And for whatever reason, that's what she was doing. Even though we ruled out pain, and my saddle fit wasn't that bad, but I mean, that could have been it, and it could have been the ulcers, it could have been the stress, it could have been any number of things. But I'm working to just really do things differently and have an open mind about training, and, you know, just read my horse and see what the best thing is for her, what the best thing is for us, not just what's best for me, and using her as a means to an end. And, you know, I talked about it earlier with Bo, and just like needing to get rid of him and sell him because he was, you know, not going to be able to jump as high as I wanted. And now I could just never imagine doing that. And of course, I understand the mentality behind it. I totally understand the reasoning. But I can never imagine getting rid of Zoe at this point. She is my heart horse. She's my shoulder to cry on. And she's just the horse that has really changed everything for me. And she's been with me through all of the roughest parts of my life. And I love that horse more than anything. So, I don't know. I could definitely never fathom getting rid of her to move up or to jump higher or anything like that. And she just is my heart horse, you know. And I thought Bo was too, and I used to say that, and I said that about Dragonfly. And, you know, the reality is that's the world I was in, that horses are, you know, they teach you what they can, and then you give them to somebody else for them to teach somebody else. And I think that is all well and fine, and I think that there is a place for that for sure. But as far as it goes for me and Zoe, she is mine. And she's mine forever. And I love that horse, and I want to give her the best life that I can. And so, yeah, that's the story of me and Zoe. I hope I didn't get too, like, philosophical there at the end. And I don't want anyone to think that I'm shaming people for, like, selling your horses. Like I said, I absolutely think there's a time and a place for that. And horses, absolutely, you have to have, you know, old wise horses, or even middle-aged wise horses teach younger people how to ride and how to do things. But I think that there is something to be said about committing to a horse and keeping them. And sometimes the horse you buy isn't the horse that you're meant to have forever. But I think Zoe is my meant to be horse, and I just love her with my whole heart. And I can never imagine getting rid of her. We've been through too much. She's changed way too much for me, and she means way too much to me. So she's stuck with me, unfortunately. My God, my nose is running uncontrollably. It's like that kind of running where your nose is super stopped up, and so when you, like, nothing happens. It's really awesome. So it just keeps running out of your face. It's pretty great. I love it. Anyway, enough about my nose and snot. Yeah, I don't know. That's the story of Zoe, and that's where we are. God, I could go on forever about how much I love her. She's incredible. But I think it's time to wrap this podcast up. This weekend, I am actually going to an Alexander Curling clinic, which I am really excited about. For those of you who don't know, Alexander Curlin is the founder of the Click That Teaches. She has several books and many DVDs on clicker training. She has a podcast called EquiTheory, and she's like a speaker or member at Clicker Expo and all that good stuff. And she's really one of the first people that ever started clicker training with horses that like decided to write a book about it and like be present in that world. So I am like absolutely like so excited to go to this clinic. I'm interested to see how her methods have evolved since she wrote the books, because there's a lot of negative reinforcement in the books. But in her podcast, she talks about not using a lot of that. So I don't know. I'm really interested to see where we're at. I'm taking both Zoe and Max, so this will be really fun because they're both very different horses. So I'm dying. I'm really out of steam. But I'll be making a podcast about that, hopefully after the clinic. But I think I'm going to go ahead and pre-film an episode for the Tuesday after, because the clinic will be running from Friday to Monday, and Monday night I'm probably not going to be able to sit down and record a whole episode. So might be 2 weeks before that podcast goes up, but be on the lookout for that. I can't wait to talk about it at great length and discuss everything. And who knows, maybe I can talk her into guesting on my podcast at some point. Wouldn't that be awesome? But yeah, that's it. I'm out of breath. My mouth is dry and I am dead. So I'm going to wrap this podcast up. Thank you guys so much for listening. Be sure to check back in next week. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this week's episode of Equine in Theory. For more of me, Zoe, and Mac and the gang, be sure to check us out on social media platforms like Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook at JETEquiTheory. That's my initials, J-E-T, and then E-Q-U-I Theory. My website is also JETEquiTheory.com for a list of resources, a glossary, a blog, all about positive reinforcement, created by somebody who had no idea where to look for positive reinforcement stuff. It's created for people that are just starting positive reinforcement to have an all-access place of information that's easy to grasp. So be sure to check that out, and thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. I am going to go blow my nose and take a Zyrtec, so enjoy the rest of your week.